I was supposed to be arranging tulips, that was the plan for tonight. Close the shop at 7, finish the Henderson wedding centerpieces, go home, feed my cat, and fall asleep watching terrible reality TV. A perfectly ordinary Tuesday evening in my perfectly ordinary life. Instead, I was running for my life through the streets of Brooklyn, my lungs burning, my heart hammering, and the sound of footsteps pounding behind me. It had started 2 hours ago. A wrong turn. That's all it was. A shortcut through an alley I'd taken 100 times before, trying to get to my supplier before they closed. I'd been thinking about tulips and roses and whether the Henderson bride would prefer ivory or cream ribbons. I wasn't thinking about the warehouse door that stood slightly open. I wasn't thinking about the voices coming from inside. I definitely wasn't thinking about the gunshot that cracked through the night air, or the way my feet had frozen to the pavement, or the moment the man with the gun had turned and seen me standing there like an idiot. Our eyes had met for exactly 2 seconds. 2 seconds that had destroyed my entire life. Get her. I'd run. Faster than I'd ever run before. Through alleys and side streets, past closed shops and empty lots, my flour-stained apron still tied around my waist, my comfortable work shoes slapping against wet pavement. They were still behind me. 2 of them, maybe 3. I couldn't tell anymore. Couldn't think. Could only argue and my phone had died an hour ago. I'd lost my bag somewhere around Atlantic Avenue. I had no money, no ID, no way to call for help, and I was running out of places to hide. The neighborhood changed as I ran. Brownstones gave way to larger properties. Fenced yards. Security cameras. The kind of area where people had money and privacy and didn't ask questions about strange women stumbling through their streets. I heard a car engine. Headlights swept across the road ahead. They were boxing me in. Panic made me stupid. I veered off the sidewalk toward the nearest property, a massive house set back from the street behind iron gates. The gates were closed, but there was a gap in the fence, barely visible behind overgrown bushes. I squeezed through, thorns tearing at my clothes, branches scratching my face. The yard beyond was dark and manicured, leading up to a house that looked more like a fortress than a home. Lights were on inside. Someone was home. I should find them. Should beg for help. Should call the police, but the sound of voices made me freeze. Male voices, speaking a language I didn't understand. Russian, maybe. Coming from somewhere inside the house. More criminals. More danger. More men who might kill me for seeing something I shouldn't have. I had to hide. Had to wait until the men chasing me gave up. Had to survive the next few hours and figure out what to do in the morning. The back door was unlocked. I slipped inside, finding myself in a kitchen that gleamed with expensive appliances and cold marble surfaces. Empty. Silent. The voices were coming from somewhere deeper in the house. I moved on instinct, avoiding the light, seeking darkness. Up a back staircase I found by accident. Down a hallway lined with closed doors. Into a room that seemed unused, dust covers on the furniture, curtains drawn against the night. A bedroom. Massive. With a bed large enough to sleep 6 people. A bed with enough space underneath to hide a terrified woman. I crawled beneath it without thinking, pressing myself against the wall, pulling the hanging duvet down to cover my presence. The floor was hardwood, cold against my cheek, but I barely noticed. My breath came in ragged gasps. I pressed my hand over my mouth, forcing myself to be quiet, to be invisible, to survive. Minutes passed. Or hours. I couldn't tell. Time lost meaning in the darkness under that bed, with nothing but dust and fear for company. Then I heard footsteps, heavy, deliberate, coming up the stairs, down the hallway, stopping right outside the door. A pause. Then the door opened, light spilled into the room. I held my breath, watching polished shoes cross the floor. Expensive shoes. Kind that cost more than my monthly rent. The bed dipped as someone sat on the edge, inches from where I lay frozen. I heard the click of a lighter. Smelled cigarette smoke. Watched ash drift toward the floor. Maybe he didn't know I was here. Maybe he'd smoke his cigarette and leave. Maybe I'd survive this. You can come out now. The voice was deep. Accented. Utterly calm, like he was commenting on the weather rather than addressing the woman hiding under his bed. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. I know you're there. I've known since you entered my kitchen. A long exhale of smoke. You have approximately 10 seconds to come out on your own. After that, I drag you out. Your choice. 10 seconds, but I squeezed my eyes shut, praying for a miracle that wasn't coming. 7.6.5. The bed shifted as he stood. I saw his shoes turn toward me. 3. I crawled out before he could reach for me, emerging from under the bed like a creature from a nightmare. Dirty. Scratched. Trembling with terror, I looked up at the man standing over me and forgot how to breathe. He was tall. Impossibly tall, with shoulders that blocked out the light from the doorway. His hair was pale, almost white, cropped close to his skull. His face was all sharp angles and cold beauty, like something carved from ice, but it was his eyes that stopped my heart. They were blue. Not the warm blue of summer skies or tropical waters. The blue of glaciers. Frozen lakes. Of death by hypothermia. He looked at me like I was already dead. Interesting place to die, he said. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. He crouched down, bringing himself to my level, and I saw tattoos crawling up his neck. Russian letters. Symbols I didn't recognize. The marks of a man who'd done things I couldn't imagine. Who sent you? No one. I was running. There were men, and I saw something I shouldn't have, and they chased me, and I didn't know where else to go. The words tumbled out in a desperate rush. Please. Please don't kill me. I'll leave right now. I'll pretend I was never here. Please. He studied me with those frozen eyes, and I felt like he was reading my entire history in my face. My fear. My desperation. My absolute certainty that I was about to die. What did you see? A man. Being shot. In a warehouse on 53rd. Something flickered in his expression. Gone too fast to read. Describe the shooter. Tall. Dark hair. A scar on his face, right here. I touched my own cheek, tracing the line. He was wearing a red shirt. And there was a tattoo on his hand. A snake, I think. The man went very still. Alexei's man, he murmured, more to himself than to me. Interesting. Please. I was crying now, tears streaming down my filthy face. I don't know anything. I'm just a florist. I arrange flowers for weddings and funerals, and I've never hurt anyone in my life. Please let me go. He rose to his full height, looking down at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. You witnessed a murder committed by Alexei Volkov's organization. You stumbled into my home while fleeing from his men. His voice was matter-of-fact. Do you understand what that means? That I'm going to die. That you're valuable. He extended his hand. Get up. We have much to discuss. I stared at his hand like it might bite me. Who are you? Roman Kozlov. This is my home you broke into. A ghost of something that might have been amusement crossed his features. And you, little flower, have just become the most interesting thing to happen to me in years. He took me to a study on the ground floor. The room was all dark wood and leather, lined with books that looked like they'd actually been read. A fire crackled in the hearth despite the spring weather. 2 glasses of amber liquid sat on the desk, though I hadn't seen anyone pour them. Sit, Roman commanded, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. I sat. What choice did I have? He settled into his own chair, studying me with those unsettling eyes. In the better lighting, I could see more of him. The fine lines around his eyes that suggested he was older than I'd first thought. The scar that bisected his left eyebrow. The way he held himself like a man who'd never been afraid of anything in his life. Your name, he said. Ivy. Ivy Callahan. The florist. How did your apron? He nodded toward the stained fabric still tied around my waist. Ivy's Blooms. Brooklyn. I know the shop. You've been there? I've had flowers delivered from there. 4 funerals. His smile was cold. I attend many funerals, Miss Callahan. The implication hung in the air between us. He wasn't just attending funerals. He was creating the need for them. What happens now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. That depends on you. He steepled his fingers, watching me over them. You witnessed a murder committed by my enemy's organization. Alexei Volkov will not stop hunting you until you're dead. He can't risk you testifying. Can't risk you identifying his man. I'll disappear. Go somewhere far away. Change my name. You have no money. No resources. No skills for evading professional killers. He shook his head. You'd be dead within a week. Then what? What am I supposed to do? Stay here. He said it simply, like he was offering me coffee rather than a lifeline. Under my protection. Until the situation with Volkov is resolved. Stay here. With you. It's the only option that keeps you alive. And what do you get out of it? That cold smile returned. A witness to Volkov's crimes. Leverage I didn't have before. He leaned forward. You're useful to me, Miss Callahan. That's the only reason you're still breathing. I should have been insulted. Should have been terrified. Instead, I felt something unexpected, hope. How long? Weeks. Perhaps months. However long it takes to neutralize the threat. And then you go back to your flowers and your ordinary life, and we pretend none of this ever happened. It was insane. Staying in the home of a man who was clearly a criminal, probably a murderer, definitely dangerous. Trading one set of killers for another, but Roman Kozlov was offering me something Alexei Volkov never would a chance to survive. Hey, I heard myself say. I'll stay. Good. He rose from his chair. Victor will show you to a room. You'll find clothes and toiletries provided. Tomorrow, we'll discuss the terms of our arrangement in more detail. Terms? Nothing is free, Miss Callahan. Not even protection. He moved toward the door, pausing at the threshold. Sleep well. You're safe here. How do I know that? How do I know you won't kill me in my sleep? He looked back at me, and for just a moment I thought I saw something human beneath all that ice. Because I don't waste valuable things. His eyes held mine. And you, little flower, are very valuable indeed. He left, and I sat alone in his study, wondering what kind of devil I'd just made a deal with and whether I'd live long enough to regret it. The room they gave me was nicer than my entire apartment. A 4-poster bed with silk sheets. A bathroom with a tub deep enough to swim in. A closet already stocked with clothes in my size, tags still attached, brands I couldn't pronounce let alone afford. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every shadow seemed threatening. Every creak of the old house made me flinch. I lay in that massive bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment when my eyes had met the killers in that warehouse. He'd seen my face. He knew what I looked like. And now he was out there, hunting me, while I hid in the home of a man who might be just as dangerous. Dawn came slowly, gray light seeping through curtains I hadn't bothered to close. I showered mechanically, scrubbing away the dirt and blood from my desperate flight. The scratches on my arms stung under the hot water. The bruise on my knee throbbed, but I was alive, for now I dressed in clothes that weren't mine. Simple things, a soft sweater and dark pants, but they fit perfectly. Someone had researched my size. Someone had anticipated my needs before I even knew I had them. The thought should have been comforting. Instead, it reminded me how far out of my depth I was. A knock on the door made me jump. Miss Callahan. A deep voice, unfamiliar. Mr. Kozlov requests your presence for breakfast. I opened the door to find a mountain of a man waiting in the hallway. He was enormous, easily 6.5 feet tall, with shoulders that barely fit through door frames. His face was impassive, scarred, with the flat eyes of someone who'd seen too much to be surprised by anything. You must be Victor, I said. Follow me. He turned and walked away without waiting for a response. I followed because what else could I do? The house was even larger than I'd realized. Hallways branched into more hallways. Staircases led to floors I hadn't known existed. Everything was expensive and cold, beautiful in a way that felt more like a museum than a home. Victor led me to a dining room overlooking the ocean. Brighton Beach stretched beyond the windows, gray waves crashing against gray sand under a gray sky. It matched my mood perfectly. Roman sat at the head of a table long enough to seat 20. He was reading a newspaper, an actual physical newspaper, and didn't look up when I entered. "Sit," he said without lifting his eyes. "Eat." Table was laden with food. Eggs, toast, fresh fruit, pastries that smelled like butter and heaven. My stomach growled despite my fear that I sat as far from him as possible while still being at the same table. "You didn't sleep," Roman observed, still reading his paper. "How do you know?" "I know everything that happens in my house." He finally looked up, those glacier eyes assessing me. "You're no good to me." Exhausted. "Tonight you'll take a sleeping pill." "I'm not taking pills from you." "Then you'll take pills from my doctor, who will arrive this afternoon to examine you." He folded his newspaper with precise movements. "I protect my investments, Miss Callahan. That includes ensuring they're healthy. I'm not an investment. I'm a person. In my world, people are investments, resources to be managed, assets to be protected or eliminated depending on their usefulness." He rose, circling the table to pour himself coffee from an antique silver pot. "You can find that offensive if you like. It won't change reality." I should have stayed quiet. Should have nodded and eaten my breakfast and been grateful I wasn't dead. Instead, I said, "You must be very lonely." He froze, coffee pot suspended mid-pour. "Excuse me. Everyone in your life is just an investment, a resource." I met his eyes, surprised by my own boldness. "That sounds lonely." The silence stretched between us. I watched emotions flicker across his face, too fast to read. Surprise, anger, and something else, something that looked almost like pain. Then the mask slammed back into place. "Eat your breakfast, Miss Callahan. We have business to discuss." He left the room without another word. Victor appeared from somewhere, his expression suggesting I'd just done something monumentally stupid. "You shouldn't provoke him," he said quietly. "Why? Because he'll kill me? Because he might." Victor's eyes met mine. "Mr. Kozlov is not a patient man, not a forgiving one. The last person who spoke to him like that, what happened to them?" Victor didn't answer. He didn't have to. I ate my breakfast in silence, wondering how long my boldness would keep me alive. The business Roman wanted to discuss turned out to be my entire life. That we sat in his study, the same room from last night, while he interrogated me with the precision of a surgeon. Every detail about what I'd witnessed. Every description I could provide of the warehouse, the victim, the killer. He wrote nothing down, but I could tell he was cataloging everything, filing it away in that calculating mind. "The man who was killed," he said finally. "You're certain you didn't recognize him?" "I've never seen him before." He was older, maybe 50s. Expensive suit, gray hair, distinguished looking, ring on his left hand, thick gold band. "Ah, yes. How did you know?" "Because you just described Sergei Petrov." Roman leaned back in his chair. "One of Volkov's most trusted advisors. Missing for 3 days now." Volkov killed his own advisor? Volkov kills anyone who threatens his position. Sergei had been talking to federal investigators, trading information for immunity. Roman's smile was cold. "In our world, that's a death sentence. So I witnessed the murder of an informant. You witnessed the murder of a man who could have brought down Alexei Volkov's entire organization." His eyes glittered. "Do you understand now why he wants you dead?" I understood. God help me, I understood perfectly. "What happens now?" "Now you stay here. You don't leave the property. You don't contact anyone from your old life. You don't exist until I say otherwise." "For how long?" "Until Volkov is no longer a threat." And how do you plan to make that happen? Roman studied me for a long moment. That's not your concern. It is if it affects how long I'm trapped here. Trapped. He tasted the word like it was bitter. I've given you safety, luxury, protection from men who would kill you without hesitation. And you feel trapped? I didn't choose this. Any of it. I stood, pacing to the window. Yesterday I was arranging tulips for the Henderson wedding. Now I'm hiding in a stranger's house, wearing stranger's clothes, waiting for someone to decide if I live or die. I've already decided you live. For now. Because I'm useful. I turned to face him. What happens when I'm not useful anymore? Then we'll discuss new terms. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. He rose, approaching slowly. You want guarantees, Miss Callahan. Certainty. Safety. I can't give you those things. No one can. The only thing I can promise is that while you're under my protection, no harm will come to you. And I'm supposed to trust you? A man I found out about by hiding under his bed? You're supposed to trust that I'm your only option. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Volkov has unlimited resources, unlimited patience. He will never stop looking for you. The only person standing between you and a very painful death is me. Why? What do you get out of protecting me? I told you. Your leverage. That's not the whole story. His jaw tightened. What makes you say that? 'Cause you could have turned me over to Volkov. Used me as a bargaining chip. Instead, you're keeping me hidden, protecting me, spending resources you could use elsewhere. I held his gaze. Why? The silence stretched between us. I watched something shift in his expression, a crack in all that ice. Because I'm tired of watching innocent people die for Volkov's ambitions. His voice was quiet. Because you stumbled into my home looking like a frightened rabbit, and for the first time in years I felt something other than cold. What did you feel? Curiosity. His hand rose, hovering near my face but not touching. You called me lonely. You were right. I've built an empire of ice and blood, and I've frozen out everyone who might have mattered. That sounds like a choice. It was. A necessary one. His fingers finally touched my cheek, light as a whisper, until a flower girl crawled out from under my bed and looked at me like I was human. My breath caught. His touch was cold, but something warm sparked beneath it. Roman, this changes nothing. He withdrew his hand abruptly. You're still here because you're useful. 'Cause protecting you serves my interests. Don't read more into it than that. Is that what you tell yourself? It's the truth. Is it? We stared at each other, something electric crackling in the air between us. I saw his control waver, saw the ice crack a little more, then Victor appeared in the doorway. Boss, we have a problem. Roman's expression hardened instantly. What kind of problem? Volkov's men. They found the florist's apartment. They're tearing it apart looking for information about where she might have gone. My blood ran cold. Mrs. Brennan. My neighbor. She's 80 years old. If they hurt her, Victor. Roman's voice was sharp. Send a team. Get the old woman out before Volkov's people can question her. And bring her here, to a safe house. Somewhere comfortable. Make sure she has everything she needs. Victor nodded and disappeared. I stared at Roman in disbelief. You're rescuing my neighbor? I'm eliminating a loose end. If Volkov's men question her, she might tell them something useful. Better to remove her from the equation. That's not why you're doing it. That's exactly why I'm doing it. But his eyes told a different story. Don't confuse practicality with kindness, Miss Callahan. I'm not a kind man. Then what kind of man are you? He moved toward the door, pausing at the threshold like he had the night before. The kind who survives. He looked back at me. Learn from that. It might keep you alive. He left, and I stood alone in his study, touching the cheek where his fingers had rested. Something was happening between us. Something dangerous and impossible and absolutely insane, and I had no idea how to stop it. 3 days passed in strange isolation. I explored the house, learning its rhythms and routines. Kitchen where staff appeared and disappeared like ghosts. The library filled with books in 3 languages. The garden where I was allowed to walk, always with Victor or another guard watching from a distance. Roman came and went at odd hours, speaking to me in brief conversations that always seemed to mean more than the words suggested. We ate dinner together each night, an arrangement I hadn't agreed to but couldn't refuse. He asked about my flowers, about why I'd chosen that particular business, about my life before everything went wrong. I told him things I'd never told anyone, about my father who died when I was 12, about my mother who'd worked herself to death paying off his debts, about the way flowers had become my escape, my art, my reason for getting up every morning. He listened. Really listened, with those glacier eyes focused entirely on me, and slowly, impossibly, the ice began to thaw. "You're different," I said one night, over a dinner of food I couldn't pronounce. "Different than I expected." "What did you expect?" "A monster. Killer. Someone cold all the way through." "I am all those things." "Maybe. But you're also—" I searched for the right word. "Lonely. Like I said that first morning. And you've decided to fix that." "I've decided you're human. Whether you like it or not." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. It was a rusty sound, like something that hadn't been used in years. But it transformed his face, softening all those sharp edges, making him look almost young. "You're a dangerous woman, Ivy Callahan." "I'm a florist." "You're a florist who sees through walls I've spent a lifetime building." His smile faded. "That makes you very dangerous indeed." "Should I stop?" "Probably." His eyes held mine. "But I find I don't want you to." The admission hung between us, heavy with implication. I reached across the table, my fingers brushing his. He didn't pull away. The kiss happened on the 7th night. I was in the library, curled up in a leather chair that had become my favorite spot, reading a book of Russian poetry I'd found on the shelves. I couldn't understand most of it, but the sounds were beautiful, and I liked imagining what the words might mean. "Pushkin," Roman's voice came from the doorway. "You have good taste." I looked up to find him watching me with an expression I'd never seen before. Something soft. Almost tender. "I can't read Russian." "Then why choose that book?" "Because it belonged to someone who loved it." I traced the worn spine. "The pages are soft from being turned so many times." "Someone read these poems over and over again." "My mother." He entered the room, moving to the chair across from mine. "She read Pushkin to me when I was a child. Before everything changed." "What changed?" "My father died. I inherited his empire at 22. His voice was matter-of-fact, but I heard the pain beneath. There was no room for poetry after that. No room for anything soft. But you kept her book. Kept all her books. Everything that remained of her." He looked at the shelves surrounding us. "This library was hers. I haven't changed anything since she died." "When was that?" 8 years ago. "Cancer." His jaw tightened. "She suffered for months. I had unlimited resources, unlimited power, and I couldn't save her." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Death is the only certainty in life. I learned that lesson young." His eyes found mine. "But sometimes I forget. Sometimes I look at someone and think perhaps there's more than just survival." The air between us shifted. Charged. "Roman, I shouldn't want you." He rose from his chair, moving toward me with predatory grace. "You're a witness under my protection. Complication I don't need." A vulnerability I can't afford. Then don't want me. I've tried. He stopped in front of my chair, looking down at me. Every night I tell myself to keep my distance, to remember what you are, what I am, and every night I find myself counting the hours until I see you again. My heart hammered against my ribs. That sounds inconvenient. Extremely. His hand extended, offering to help me up. But I've stopped fighting it. I took his hand. He pulled me to my feet, closer than necessary, close enough that I could feel his breath against my hair. His other hand found my waist, steadying me against his body. "Tell me to stop," he murmured. "Tell me this is a mistake and I'll walk away." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because I don't want you to stop." He kissed me. It wasn't gentle, wasn't careful. It was fire and ice and everything in between, months of tension releasing in a single moment of contact. His hands tangled in my hair. My fingers gripped his shoulders. We kissed like we were drowning in each other was oxygen. When we finally separated, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. "This changes everything," he said quietly. "I know. I can't protect you and want you at the same time. One will compromise the other. Then choose." "I already have." His lips brushed mine again, softer this time. "God help me, I already have." We didn't sleep together that night. Instead, we talked until dawn, curled up together in that leather chair, sharing pieces of ourselves we'd hidden from everyone else. He told me about his father. A brutal man who'd beaten weakness out of his sons with fists and fear. About his brother Dmitri, softer and kinder, who Roman had protected from their father's worst rages. About the first man he'd killed at 19, and how he'd thrown up afterward and never told anyone. I told him about the loneliness of being an orphan. About the foster homes that never felt like home. About the way flowers had saved me, given me something beautiful to focus on when everything else was ugly. By morning, something had shifted between us. Something fundamental and irreversible. I was falling for Roman Kozlov, and from the way he looked at me, he was falling too. The next week was a strange kind of paradise. We fell into a routine that felt almost domestic. Breakfast together every morning. Long conversations in the library. Dinners that stretched into evenings, then into nights spent talking and kissing and learning each other's bodies with careful exploration. Roman was different when we were alone. Softer. Almost playful. He laughed at my terrible jokes and teased me about my addiction to terrible reality TV. He brought me flowers from his garden, presenting them with mock formality that made me giggle. "You're buying flowers for a florist," I pointed out. "I'm courting you properly." "There's a difference." "Is that what this is?" "Courting. What else would you call it? Captivity with benefits?" He laughed, that rusty sound I was learning to love. "You're impossible. You like that about me. I like everything about you." He pulled me close, kissing me until I forgot what we'd been talking about. That's the problem. But beneath the happiness, danger lurked. Victor brought reports every day. Volkov's men were still searching for me. They'd question my suppliers, my neighbors, my few remaining friends. No one knew anything, but that wouldn't stop them from trying. "He's getting desperate," Roman told me one evening. "Expanding his search beyond Brooklyn. Offering rewards for information." "How much am I worth?" $500,000. The number made me dizzy. "That's insane." "That's fear. He knows what you saw, what you could testify to." Roman's expression hardened. "He'll burn the city down before he lets you talk." "So what do? We end him first." Cold certainty in his voice reminded me who I was dealing with. Not just a man who'd kissed me in a library. A crime lord. Killer. Someone who spoke about ending lives like it was a business decision. "When?" "Soon. My people are gathering intelligence. Finding weaknesses." His hand found mine. "When we move, it will be decisive." "And what happens to me?" You'll be safe, hidden, protected until it's over. I don't want to hide. I want to help. No. His voice was sharp. This isn't your world, Ivy. You don't belong in it. I'm already in it. I have been since I saw that murder. Which is exactly why I need to get you out. He cupped my face in his hands. You're good. Pure. Everything I'm not. I won't let this world destroy that. Maybe I'm stronger than you think. You're the strongest person I've ever met. That's not the point. His eyes searched mine. The point is that you deserve better than blood and bullets. You deserve flowers and sunshine and a life where the biggest problem is which arrangement to make for which wedding. What if I want this life instead? Question hung between us. I saw hope flicker in his eyes, quickly suppressed. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. I stepped closer. I want you, Roman. All of you. The good parts and the terrible parts. Poetry reader and the killer. Everything. Ivy, tell me you don't want the same thing. Tell me you'll let me walk away when this is over and never look back. He was silent. His jaw worked. His hands trembled against my face. I can't, he finally admitted. God help me, I can't. Then stop trying to protect me from you. Kissed him softly. And let me decide what I can handle. He pulled me into his arms, holding me like I might disappear. You'll regret this, he murmured against my hair. One day you'll wake up and realize what you've chosen, and you'll hate me for letting you choose it. Maybe. But I'd rather regret choosing than regret never having the chance. We held each other in the fading light, two people from different worlds trying to build something in the space between. The attack came 3 days later that I was in the garden cutting roses for the library when the first explosion shook the ground. Glass shattered somewhere inside the house. Alarms screamed. Guards ran past me toward the front gate, weapons drawn. Miss Callahan. Victor appeared from nowhere, grabbing my arm. We need to move. Now. What's happening? Volkov. He found you. The words turned my blood to ice. How? It doesn't matter. What matters is getting you to safety. He pulled me toward a door I'd never noticed, hidden in the garden wall. There's a tunnel. It leads to a safe house 3 blocks away. Where's Roman? Fighting. Where he belongs. Victor's grip tightened. You're my priority. Move. I wanted to argue. Wanted to run toward the gunfire instead of away from it. But Victor was already dragging me through the door, down a set of stairs into darkness. The tunnel was narrow and cold, lit only by Victor's flashlight. Our footsteps echoed against stone walls that smelled like earth and age. I could still hear explosions above us, muffled now, distant. He'll be okay, Victor said, reading my thoughts. He's survived worse. How did they find me? Someone talked. One of the staff, probably. Volkov has deep pockets and no conscience. Victor's voice was grim. We'll find the leak. And when we do, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. We emerged into a basement that connected to an ordinary-looking house. Victor led me upstairs, through rooms that had been prepared for exactly this situation. Supplies, weapons, communications equipment. You'll stay here until Roman contacts us, Victor instructed. Don't leave. Don't answer the door. Don't trust anyone except me or the boss. Victor. I grabbed his arm as he turned to leave. Promise me you'll bring him back. Something softened in his scarred face. I've been protecting Roman Kozlov since he was 22 years old. I've never let him down. There's a first time for everything. Not today. He placed a gun in my hand, curling my fingers around it. You know how to use this? Point and shoot? Close enough. Safety's here. He showed me. Anyone comes through that door who isn't me or Roman, you shoot first and ask questions never. Then he was gone, and I was alone with a weapon I barely knew how to use and a heart full of fear. Hours passed. I sat in the darkness, listening to sirens and distant sounds of violence, praying to gods I wasn't sure I believed in. Please let him be okay. Please bring him back to me, please. The door opened near midnight. I raised the gun with shaking hands, finger on the trigger, ready to shoot whatever came through. Roman stepped into the light. He was covered in blood. His shirt was torn. A gash on his forehead leaked crimson down his face. But he was alive. He was standing. He was looking at me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. Ivy. The gun clattered to the floor. I ran to him, throwing myself into his arms, not caring about the blood or the danger or anything except the solid reality of his body against mine. You're okay. I was crying, I realized. You're okay. I'm okay. He held me tight, his face buried in my hair. It's over. Volkov is dead. His organization is finished. How? It doesn't matter. He pulled back to look at me. What matters is that you're safe. That we're safe. Roman. I touched his face, tracing the lines of exhaustion and pain. Take me home. The mansion isn't safe yet. We'll need to, not the mansion. I pressed my forehead to his. Wherever you are. That's home. His breath caught. His arms tightened around me. Ivy, I love you. The words came out before I could stop them. I know it's crazy. I know we've only known each other for weeks. But I love you, Roman Kozlov. All of you. He was silent for so long I thought I'd made a terrible mistake. Then his lips found mine, and he kissed me with a desperation that said everything words couldn't. I love you too, he breathed against my mouth. God help us both, I love you too. The mansion took 3 weeks to repair. 3 weeks of construction crews and security sweeps and Victor's constant presence, ensuring that every vulnerability had been addressed. The explosion had taken out the east wing entirely, shattering windows and crumbling walls that had stood for a century. Roman watched the destruction with an expression I couldn't read. It's just a building, I said, standing beside him in the ruined garden. It was my mother's home, place where she raised me, where she read me poetry and told me I could be anything I wanted. His voice was hollow. Now it's rubble. We can rebuild. Can we? He turned to look at me. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. I took his hand, lacing my fingers through his. And some things become stronger in the broken places. He studied me for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. You're relentlessly optimistic. Has anyone ever told you that? I'm a florist. Optimism is part of the job description. I squeezed his fingers. Plants die. Gardens wither. But spring always comes eventually. You think spring is coming for us? I think it's already here. I gestured at the chaos around us. This looks like destruction, but it's also an opportunity. A chance to build something new. Something better. Roman pulled me close, wrapping his arms around me from behind. We stood together in the ruins, watching workers clear debris and stack salvageable materials. What would you build? He asked. If you could design our future from scratch. A garden. A real one, not just decorative. With vegetables and herbs and flowers I could use for arrangements. I leaned back against his chest. A greenhouse, maybe. Somewhere I could work during the winter. What else? A kitchen big enough to actually cook in. A bedroom with windows that face the sunrise. A library where we could read together every night. I smiled. Simple things. The things that matter. That sounds like a home. That's exactly what it is. He was quiet for a moment. Then his arms tightened around me. Then that's what we'll build. The reconstruction began immediately. Roman hired architects and designers, giving them one instruction: make it hers. Every decision came to me. Every choice was mine to make. He watched me transform his cold fortress into something warm and alive, and he never complained. Not once did I added windows everywhere, flooding the rooms with light. I chose warm colors instead of cold. I designed a garden that would bloom year-round, with a greenhouse attached to the kitchen so I could step outside and gather fresh herbs for cooking. The library stayed almost the same, but I added comfortable chairs and soft rugs and a fireplace that actually worked. I kept Roman's mother's books in their original places, adding my own collection to fill the empty shelves. "It's different," Roman observed one evening, walking through the nearly completed space. "Is that okay?" "It's better." He pulled me into his arms. "It feels like somewhere people actually live." Imagine that. A crime lord with a cozy home. Former crime lord. His expression grew serious. "I've been thinking about what you said. About building something new." "What kind of something?" "The legitimate kind." He led me to the window, looking out over the grounds where workers were planting the garden I'd designed. Volkov's death created a power vacuum. Other families are already moving to fill it. The smart play would be to consolidate, expand, eliminate the competition. But I'm tired. Tired of blood and paranoia and watching over my shoulder every moment. His voice softened. "I want what you described. Simple things. A garden. Kitchen. A life where the biggest problem is which flowers to arrange." Roman Kozlov going straight? I couldn't hide my surprise. Is that even possible? With time. With care. With the right motivation. His hand found my cheek. "You're my motivation, Ivy. You make me want to be someone different. Someone better. You're already someone. Flaws and all." "Flaws." He laughed bitterly. "I've killed people. Ordered deaths. Built an empire on fear and violence. Those aren't flaws. Those are crimes." And Volkov? The man who would have killed me without hesitation? Who trafficked people and destroyed lives? I held his gaze. Was killing him a crime or a service? Both. Then maybe morality isn't as simple as we pretend it is. I touched his face. "I'm not saying you're innocent. I'm saying you're complicated. Human. Capable of terrible things and wonderful things in equal measure. And you can live with that? The terrible parts? I can live with you. All of you." Kissed him softly. "That's what love means." He held me like I was precious. Like I might break if he squeezed too hard. "I don't deserve you." Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway. Dmitri arrived 2 weeks later that I'd heard about Roman's younger brother. Knew he existed somewhere in Europe, running legitimate businesses that laundered money Roman no longer needed laundered. But I'd never expected to meet him. He showed up unannounced, walking through the front door like he owned the place, and stopped dead when he saw me. "So the rumors are true." His voice was lighter than Roman's, his accent softer. "My brother has a woman." "Dmitri." Roman appeared from the study, his expression guarded. "I wasn't expecting you." Clearly. Dimitri's eyes swept over me with obvious curiosity. "Are you going to introduce us?" "Ivy Callahan. My partner." Roman moved to stand beside me, his hand finding the small of my back. "Ivy, this is Dmitri." "My brother." The infamous Dmitri. I extended my hand. "Roman's told me about you. Only good things, I hope." Dmitri took my hand, but instead of shaking it, he raised it to his lips with old-world charm. "Though, knowing my brother, probably not. He told me you're the smart one." "Did he?" Dmitri shot Roman a surprised look. "That's unexpectedly generous. She brings out my better qualities." Roman's arm wrapped around my waist. "Why are you here? Can I visit my only brother?" "You've never visited before." "Not once in 8 years." Then perhaps it's time I started. Dimitri's expression grew serious. I heard about Volkov, about the attack. I wanted to make sure you were still alive. As you can see, I am. And apparently domesticated. Dimitri gestured at the transformed mansion. This place looks like an actual home. I barely recognized it. Ivy's influence. Significant influence. Dimitri studied me with new interest. You've accomplished in weeks what I've been trying to do for years. Get Roman to think about something other than the business. The business is changing, Roman said quietly. That's actually something I wanted to discuss with you. Changing how? I'm getting out. Transitioning to legitimate operations. I want you to help me manage the transition. Dimitri stared at his brother like he'd grown a second head. You're serious? I've never been more serious about anything in my life. What about the other families? The territories? The obligations? I'll honor existing agreements during the transition. After that, I'm done. Roman's grip on my waist tightened. I have something worth protecting now. Something that matters more than power or money or revenge. Dimitri's gaze moved between us, calculating. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. Well, this is unexpected. He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Roman Kozlov, reformed by a florist. Our father would be spinning in his grave. Good. He deserves the vertigo. He absolutely does. Dimitri extended his hand to his brother. Whatever you need. I'm here. Roman clasped his hand and something passed between them. Understanding. Forgiveness. The beginning of a relationship that had been frozen for years. Stay for dinner, I said impulsively. Both of you. Let me cook. You cook? Dimitri looked genuinely delighted. Roman, where did you find this woman? Under my bed, actually. Dimitri's expression shifted to confusion. I'm sorry, what? Long story. I smiled. I'll tell you over dinner. Dinner became a weekly tradition. Dimitri stayed in New York, helping Roman navigate the complex process of going legitimate. There were negotiations with other families, arrangements to transfer territories, careful diplomacy to ensure the transition didn't spark a war. I stayed out of most of it, focusing on rebuilding my business. Roman had given me the resources to open a new shop, larger and better equipped than my old one. I hired staff, expanded into event planning, built relationships with hotels and wedding planners across the city. Within months, Ivy's Blooms was thriving. You're a natural, Roman observed one evening, reviewing my latest financial reports. These numbers are impressive. I had a good teacher. Kissed his cheek. Some crime lord taught me about leverage and negotiation. Former crime lord. Getting there. I settled into the chair beside him. Speaking of which, how's the transition going? Slowly. There are complications. His jaw tightened. Some of the old guard don't want to let go. They see my retirement as an opportunity. Opportunity for what? To challenge. To take what I'm giving up. He rubbed his temples. I've spent 15 years building fear. Now I'm trying to build something else, and the fear is working against me. What can I do? Nothing. This is my world. My mess to clean up. He looked at me with tired eyes. I just need time. Then take time. I'm not going anywhere. You should. This was supposed to be temporary. Protection until Volkov was dealt with. His voice cracked slightly. You're free now, Ivy. You could go back to your normal life. Forget any of this ever happened. Is that what you want? No. God, no. He pulled me into his lap, holding me tight. But what I want and what's best for you aren't always the same thing. Let me decide what's best for me. I cupped his face in my hands. I chose you, Roman. eyes open, full knowledge of what I was getting into. Stop trying to give me an escape route I don't want. I'm trying to be noble. Be practical instead. Kissed him. I love you. You love me. We're building something together. Focus on that. You make it sound simple. It is simple. We're the ones who complicate it. He laughed, that rusty sound I'd come to treasure. When did you get so wise? Somewhere between hiding under your bed and falling in love with you. I smiled. Trauma has a way of clarifying priorities. And your priority is me. My priority is us. I pressed my forehead to his. Whatever that looks like. Wherever it takes us. He kissed me then, deep and slow with all the tenderness he usually kept hidden. I love you, little flower. I love you too, Ice King. Ice King. He raised an eyebrow. Would you prefer something else? Mafia Daddy? Crime Lord Cutie? I would prefer you stop talking entirely. Make me. He did, and for a while all the complications and dangers and uncertainties faded away. There was only us, only love, only the impossible future we were building together, one day at a time. The threat came from within 0.6 months into Roman's transition. When everything seemed to be falling into place, Victor appeared in the doorway of our bedroom at 3 a.m. Boss, we have a problem. Roman was on his feet before I fully woke, already reaching for the gun he kept in the nightstand. What kind of problem? Sergei's men. The ones who survived Volkov's purge. Victor's face was grim. They've allied with the Marchetti family. They're planning a coup. How do you know? One of their people talked. For the right price. Victor handed Roman a phone. Recordings. Plans. Everything. Roman listened to the recordings in silence, his expression growing colder with each passing minute. I watched from the bed, fear crawling up my spine. How many? Roman asked finally. 30. Maybe 40. Armed and motivated. When? Tomorrow night. They're planning to hit the compound during the transition ceremony. Transition ceremony. The formal event where Roman would officially hand over his territories to the council, completing his exit from the criminal world. Every major figure in the organization would be present. A tea would be a massacre. Cancel it, I said, climbing out of bed. Postpone the ceremony. Don't give them the opportunity. If I postpone, I look weak. Others will see it as an invitation to challenge. Roman's voice was flat. I have to go forward. Into an ambush? Into a battle I didn't start but I'll damn well finish. He turned to Victor. Call everyone. Full security. I want every man we have at that ceremony. Roman. I grabbed his arm. There has to be another way. There isn't. His eyes met mine and I saw the ice returning. Coldness he'd been slowly shedding, crystallizing again under pressure. This is my world, Ivy. My mess. I have to clean it up. Then let me help. No. I'm not asking permission. And I'm not negotiating. His hands gripped my shoulders. You stay here. In the safe room. With guards I trust. You don't leave until I come back for you. And if you don't come back, question hung between us. He was silent for too long. Victor will get you out. New identity. New life. Somewhere far from here. I don't want a new life. I want this one. With you. Then let me protect it. He kissed my forehead, lingering longer than necessary. Let me protect you. Roman, promise me. His voice cracked. Promise me you'll stay safe. That whatever happens tomorrow, you'll survive. I saw the fear beneath his control. The desperate love he was trying so hard to suppress. The knowledge that he might not survive the next 24 hours. Promise, I whispered. But you have to promise me too. Promise me you'll come back. I'll try. Not good enough. It's all I have. He kissed me properly then, deep and desperate, pouring everything he couldn't say into the contact. I love you, Ivy Callahan. Whatever happens, remember that. Then he was gone, disappearing into the darkness with Victor, leaving me alone with my fear. The next day was the longest of my life. I did what Roman asked. Stayed in the safe room. Watched the monitors that showed empty hallways and silent grounds. Waited for news that might never come. The ceremony was scheduled for 8 p.m. By 7:30, my nerves were shredded beyond repair. I tried reading. Couldn't focus. Tried watching TV. Couldn't care. Tried sleeping. Couldn't even close my eyes. All I could do was wait. And pray. The monitors flickered at 8:15. I leaned forward, heart pounding, watching figures move through the compound's main hall. The ceremony had begun. Roman stood at the front of the room, surrounded by men in expensive suits, speaking words I couldn't hear. Everything looked normal. Controlled. Safe. Then the doors burst open. The attack was brutal and efficient. Men in tactical gear storming through every entrance, weapons blazing. Bodies falling. Chaos erupting in the elegant space where Roman had planned to end his criminal career. I watched him fight. Watched Victor and Dmitri and the guards who'd remained loyal. They were outnumbered but not outmatched, years of training and experience making them deadly even against superior numbers, but it wasn't enough. I saw Roman go down. Saw blood bloom across his white shirt. Saw Victor trying to drag him to cover while still fighting off attackers. No. The word came out as a whisper. Then a scream. No. I was moving before I knew it. Out of the safe room. Through corridors I'd memorized during months of captivity. Toward the sounds of gunfire and dying men, the rational part of my brain screamed at me to stop. To go back. To honor my promise and stay safe, but Roman was hurt. Roman might be dying. And I couldn't hide while the man I loved bled out on his own floor. I found a gun in the security station. The same one Victor had given me months ago when everything was uncertain and I was just a terrified woman hiding from killers. I wasn't terrified anymore. I was furious. The main hall was a war zone when I arrived. Bodies everywhere. Blood pooling on marble floors. The smell of gunpowder and death hanging thick in the air. Roman was against the far wall. Victor crouched in front of him, returning fire at 3 attackers who had them pinned down. I could see the spreading stain on Roman's shirt, the paleness of his face, the way his gun arm trembled with effort. He wasn't going to make it unless someone changed the odds. I raised my weapon and fired. The first shot went wide. The second found its mark. One of the attackers crumpled, and the others spun toward this new threat, giving Victor the opening he needed. 2 more shots from Victor's gun. 2 more bodies hitting the floor. Silence, absolute, ringing silence. I ran to Roman, falling to my knees beside him, hands pressing against the wound in his side. What are you doing here? His voice was weak. Angry. I told you to stay. I don't take orders from you. Tears streamed down my face. How bad? Through and through. Hurts like hell. He reached up to touch my cheek with a bloody hand. You should have stayed safe. You should have come back to me. I was trying. Victor appeared with medical supplies, pushing me aside to work on Roman's wound. I watched, helpless, as he packed and bandaged and did everything possible to keep my love alive. He'll make it, Victor said finally. Bullet missed everything vital. He's lost blood, but he'll survive. The relief that flooded through me was almost painful. Don't ever do that again, I said, gripping Roman's hand. Don't ever leave me wondering if you're coming back. I had to finish it. And did you? Is it finished? Roman's eyes moved past me, surveying the destruction in the hall. The bodies of men who'd challenged him. The ruins of a world he was trying to leave behind. It's finished, he said quietly. One way or another, it's finished. The aftermath was bloody and bureaucratic in equal measure. Roman spent a week in a private hospital, recovering from a wound that would have killed a lesser man. Dmitri handled the fallout, negotiating with surviving families, making arrangements that would ensure peace. Victor coordinated cleanup, making sure bodies disappeared and questions went unanswered. I stayed by Roman's side through all of it. "You saved my life," he said one evening when the painkillers had worn off enough for real conversation. "I returned the favor." "That's not how I remember it." "You hid under my bed." "I chose not to kill you." Semantics. I kissed his forehead. "We saved each other. That's the important part. You shouldn't have been there. In the hall. With a gun." His voice was gentle despite the words. "You could have died. So could you. But you didn't expect me to just watch, did you? I expected you to be smart. To protect yourself." I was protecting myself. I took his hand. "My life is here now. With you. Protecting myself means protecting you." He was quiet for a long moment. Then his fingers tightened around mine. "Marry me." The words came out of nowhere. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. "What?" "Marry me." He struggled to sit up, wincing at the pain. "I know this isn't how proposals are supposed to happen. I know I should wait until I'm not bleeding and we're not surrounded by the wreckage of my former life. But I almost died, Ivy. I almost died without telling you that I want forever with you. Roman, I don't have a ring. I don't have a speech prepared. I just have the certainty that you're the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I don't want to spend another day without knowing you're mine." Tears blurred my vision. "I've been yours since I crawled out from under your bed." "Is that a yes?" "That's a hell yes." I leaned down to kiss him, careful of his injuries. "But you're getting me a ring later. A big one. I've earned it." His laugh was weak but genuine. "Whatever you want. Anything. Everything. I just want you. You have me." His hand cupped my face. "For as long as you'll keep me. Forever, then. Forever." He kissed me, and for the first time since I'd witnessed that murder in the warehouse, I felt truly safe, not because the danger was gone. Not because the threats had been neutralized, but because I'd found someone worth fighting for. Worth dying for. Worth building a life with, no matter how complicated that life might be. I'd hidden under a stranger's bed to escape killers. I'd found home instead. The wedding was nothing like I'd imagined, not that I'd spent much time imagining weddings before Roman. My life had been flowers and survival, tulips and rent payments, arrangements for other people's happily ever afters while I worked alone in my tiny shop, but Roman Kozlov had changed everything. We married on a warm September afternoon, in the garden I'd designed from the ruins of his old world. White roses climbed the trellises I'd chosen. Hydrangeas spilled from planters I'd placed. Every flower, every arrangement, every detail was mine, and standing at the end of the aisle, waiting for me with those glacier eyes that had somehow learned to melt, was the man who'd become my everything. "You look terrified," Dmitri observed, standing beside his brother as best man. "I look appropriate," Roman corrected. "A man should be terrified when the best thing in his life is walking toward him in white." I heard the exchange as I approached, and my heart swelled until I thought it might burst. The ceremony was small, intimate. Just the people who mattered. Victor stood near the back, watching the perimeter even now, unable to fully relax even at his boss's wedding. Dmitri held the rings with uncharacteristic solemnity. Mrs. Brennan sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. The elderly neighbor I'd thought I'd never see again. Roman had found her a beautiful apartment near the compound. Had ensured she wanted for nothing. Had given her back to me when I'd thought I'd lost everyone. "Dearly beloved," the officiant began, but I barely heard the words. All I could see was Roman, his pale hair gleaming in the sunlight, his sharp features softened by something I'd learned to recognize as happiness, the scar on his eyebrow that reminded me how dangerous he could be, the tenderness in his eyes that reminded me how gentle he'd become. "The rings," the officiant prompted. Dmitri pressed the bands into our hands. Roman took mine, his fingers trembling slightly as he slid the ring onto my finger. I, Roman Kozlov, take you, Ivy Callahan, to be my wife. His voice was steady despite the tremor in his hands. To have and to hold from this day forward. For better, for worse. In danger and in safety. Through every challenge and every joy. That's not the traditional vow, I whispered. I'm not a traditional man. His lips quirked. I promise to protect you. To challenge you. To love you even when you're being impossibly stubborn. I promise to deserve you every day for the rest of my life. Tears streamed down my face. I didn't bother wiping them away. I, Ivy Callahan, take you, Roman Kozlov, to be my husband. My voice cracked on the words. To have and to hold. To hide under your bed when necessary. To shoot anyone who threatens you. To remind you that you're human even when you forget. Quiet laughter rippled through our small gathering. I promise to see you, I continued. All of you. Poetry and the violence. The ice and the fire. I promise to love every complicated, dangerous, beautiful part of who you are. Roman's eyes glistened. I'd never seen him cry before. By the power vested in me, the officiant said, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may. Roman kissed me before the words were finished. He was soft and fierce and perfect, a kiss that tasted like promises and futures and all the things we'd almost lost. Our guests applauded. Dmitri whistled. Victor might have smiled, though it was hard to tell with his face. When we finally separated, Roman pressed his forehead to mine. Hello, wife. Hello, husband. Interesting place to start a marriage. It is. A garden built from ruins. A life built from danger. I smiled through my tears. I wouldn't have it any other way. The reception lasted well into the evening. We danced under strings of lights in the garden, surrounded by flowers I'd grown and people who'd become family. Mrs. Brennan told embarrassing stories about my childhood to anyone who would listen. Dmitri got increasingly drunk and increasingly affectionate. Victor actually laughed at one point, a sound so rare that several people stopped to stare. Happy? Roman asked, pulling me close during a slow dance. Impossibly. No regrets? Only that I waited so long to hide under your bed. He laughed, spinning me gently. You know, I've been thinking about that night. About what would have happened if you'd chosen a different house. A different hiding spot. I probably would have died. Probably. His arms tightened around me. Instead, you crawled into my life and changed everything. I didn't mean to. I know. That's what makes it perfect. Kissed my temple. You didn't want anything from me. Didn't have an agenda or a plan. You were just terrified and desperate and looking for somewhere to survive. And you let me stay. I couldn't have turned you away if I'd wanted to. His voice softened. You looked up at me with those green eyes covered in dirt and scratches, and something in me just shifted. I didn't understand it then. I understand it now. What was it? Recognition. His eyes held mine. I was looking at the other half of my soul. The part one didn't know was missing. Fresh tears spilled down my cheeks. That's the most romantic thing you've ever said. Don't get used to it. I have a reputation to maintain. What reputation? You're a legitimate businessman now. A husband. Practically respectable. Practically. He grinned. Though I reserve the right to be occasionally terrifying when necessary. I wouldn't have you any other way. We danced until the moon was high, until our guests had departed, until we were alone in the garden we'd built from nothing. Then Roman swept me into his arms and carried me inside, into the home we'd created together, into the future we'd fought so hard to reach. 1 year later, I stood in the greenhouse attached to our kitchen, arranging flowers for the biggest order of my career. Ivy's blooms had expanded beyond anything I'd imagined. 3 locations now, with plans for a 4th. A staff of 20. contracts with hotels and wedding planners across the city. The Henderson wedding that had started everything seemed like a lifetime ago. "You're working late." Roman appeared in the doorway, still in the suit he'd worn to his meetings. Legitimate meetings with legitimate businessmen discussing legitimate investments. His transition was complete now, the criminal empire dismantled and replaced with something cleaner. Big order. The governor's daughter is getting married next month. The governor's daughter. He raised an eyebrow. "Look at you. Moving up in the world. I learn from the best." I set down my scissors and crossed to kiss him. "How were your meetings?" "Boring. Legal. Completely devoid of violence." He smiled. "I'm starting to enjoy it." "The boringness or the legality?" "Both. Though I do miss the occasional adrenaline rush." "I can arrange that." I pulled him deeper into the greenhouse. "I have ideas." "Do you now?" "Many ideas. Very creative ideas." I pressed him against the potting bench. "Unless you have somewhere else to be?" "I cleared my schedule the moment I saw you through the window." His hands found my waist. "I always clear my schedule for you." We made love surrounded by flowers and growing things, the life we'd built together blooming around us. Afterward, lying tangled on a blanket I kept for exactly such occasions, Roman traced patterns on my bare shoulder. "I have news," he said quietly. "Good news or bad news?" "Depends on your perspective." He was silent for a moment. "Dimitri is engaged. To a woman he met at a charity event. She's a doctor. Completely normal. Utterly boring. He's disgustingly happy." "That's wonderful news." I thought so too. His hands stilled on my skin. "He asked me to be his best man." "Of course he did. You're his brother." "He also asked if we'd consider being godparents. When the time comes." My breath caught. "Godparents?" "They're already planning children." "Apparently." Roman's voice was carefully neutral. Which made me think about our own situation. "What situation?" "The situation where I'm married to the woman I love and we've never discussed whether we want children of our own." My heart raced. We'd been so focused on surviving, on building, on transitioning from danger to safety. Children had never come up. "Do you want them?" I asked carefully. "I never thought I did. Never thought I'd be the kind of man who should raise children." He met my eyes. "But then I met you. And now I imagine little girls with red hair and green eyes arranging flowers in our greenhouse. Little boys learning to read poetry in the library. A family. A real one, not built on fear and obligation." Tears blurred my vision. "Roman, if you don't want them, I understand. Your career is thriving. Our life is perfect as it is. I'm not trying to pressure. I want them." He stopped mid-sentence. "What?" "I want children. With you." I touched his face. "I want everything with you." The smile that broke across his face was like watching the sun rise. "Yeah. Yeah." I laughed through tears. "But maybe we should finish the greenhouse baby-making session before we start planning nurseries." A practical woman. He rolled me beneath him. "I knew there was a reason I married you. You married me because I hid under your bed and you thought I was interesting. I married you because you saw me. Really saw me. And didn't run away." "I couldn't run." "You blocked the exit." Details. He kissed me deeply. "I love you, Ivy Kozlov." "I love you too, Roman." I wrapped myself around him. "Now stop talking and show me." He did. 3 years later, I sat in the garden we'd built together, watching our daughter chase butterflies through the roses. Lily Kozlov had her father's pale hair and my green eyes. She was fierce and curious and completely unafraid of anything, a tiny hurricane in a floral dress that would be ruined within the hour. "She's exactly like you," Roman observed, settling onto the bench beside me. She's exactly like you. Stubborn. Demanding. Impossible to refuse. Fair point. He watched our daughter with an expression of wonder that still surprised me. Did you ever think we'd end up here? Sitting in a garden while our toddler destroys your landscaping? I smiled. Not specifically. Happy. I mean, did you ever think we'd be this happy? I considered the question. Thought about the night I'd witnessed a murder and run for my life. About hiding under a stranger's bed, certain I was about to die. About looking up into glacier eyes and hearing the words that had changed everything. Interesting place to die, he'd said, but it hadn't been a place to die at all. It had been a place to live. To grow. To build something beautiful from terror and violence and two broken people who'd somehow made each other whole. No, I said honestly. I never thought I'd be this happy. Neither did I. Roman took my hand. And yet here we are. Here we are. Lily came running toward us, clutching a fistful of flowers she'd picked without permission. Her face was smeared with dirt. Her dress was already stained. She was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Mama. Papa. Look what I found. Roman scooped her up, settling her between us on the bench. She showed us her treasures with the seriousness of a scientist presenting research findings. Roses. Daisies. Something that might have been a weed. Beautiful, Roman said gravely. You have excellent taste. Like Mama. Exactly like Mama. He met my eyes over our daughter's head. The most beautiful flowers in the garden. I leaned against his shoulder, watching our daughter arrange her collection with intense concentration. The sun was setting over Brighton Beach, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose that he had started with a wrong turn. A warehouse. A murder I was never meant to see that he had started with terror and desperation and hiding under a stranger's bed, but it had ended here. In a garden filled with flowers. With a husband who'd learned to melt. With a daughter who combined our best and worst qualities in the most perfect possible way. Interesting place to die, Roman had said that first night, but it hadn't been death I'd found in his house that it had been life, and I intended to live it fully and completely for as long as I was breathing. I love you, I murmured. I know. Roman smiled, that warm expression that still surprised me every time I saw it. I love you too, little flower. Mama's not little. Lily protested. She is to me. Always. He kissed my forehead. My little flower who grew into something extraordinary. That's very poetic. I had a good teacher. He nodded toward the library, visible through the windows. My mother's books. Your influence. Turns out even ice can learn to appreciate beauty. You were never just ice. No. I was waiting. His eyes held mine. For you. We sat together in the fading light, a family built from chaos and fear and impossible hope. It wasn't the life I'd planned. It wasn't the future I'd imagined. It was better, so much better, and it was mine. Thank you so much for joining me for this story. If you enjoyed, she hid under his bed to escape the killers. Please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more thrilling stories. Your comments mean the world.